When I was a kid, I remember going to my grandparents' house in St. George, Utah. And I'm not sure if it was one specific trip or like just over the course of the times I visited, but I remember in their house is where I first got familiar with Jurassic Park. One time we even visited the St. George dinosaur discovery site at Johnson Farm nearby, and me and my brother got dinosaurs and stuffed animals and things like that. And I remember being, truly terrified of this movie growing up, like sweating it out and tense the entire time. To me, it was definitely like a horror movie. That's how I saw it growing up. And it was the first time that I had the desire to watch a horror movie. Usually I just try to avoid them, but it was like that forbidden fruit that I couldn't get enough of no matter how bad it scared me. I'm not sure specifically what drew me to it as a kid. I'm sure partly, of course, it was the quality of the movie. Maybe it was the tiny, grainy TV we watched it on, interspersed with early 2000s commercials. Maybe it was the room we watched it in and the wolf spiders that would run across my brother's hand, and none of us would believe him until we caught it. But Jurassic Park has always been one of my all-time favorite movies. And it remains very special to me, not only because of those memories, but because of the movie itself. So to make this video, I'm portraying some of the immersion and magic that I experienced while watching it as a kid. This semester in college for me, I had to take a science elective class. And the options that I narrowed it down to, being a non-science major, was either the solar system or World of Dinosaurs. And I got fortunate enough to have the World of Dinosaurs fit better in my schedule. And it's not been an easy class. I thought it would be just like pointing at dinosaurs and saying, yup, that's a dinosaur, but I guess that's not how it turned out to be. Regardless, I think some of the things I learned about dinosaurs in the class has been very interesting. And I mean, of course I took the class because of Jurassic Park, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk about some of the differences between the movie and reality, I guess as we could say it. Not out of a place of spite or that things need to be scientifically correct, but because I just think it's interesting and I found the facts and differences interesting. Some paleontologists believed one thing during the time of the movie when it came out, and now they believe a different thing, and the world of science is constantly changing, and so I thought it'd be interesting to cover some of the things that we know now to be different between Jurassic Park the movie and Jurassic Park the real life. So to start, let's go over the actual stars of the show, which are the dinosaurs. And no bigger star was made out of Jurassic Park than the Velociraptor. The Velociraptor is definitely the scariest dinosaur within the movie, and made a name for itself more than any other dinosaur from the movie. Everyone always knew T-Rex before and after, but the Velociraptor, that's different. A huge issue with the Velociraptor in the movie is its size. Velociraptors in reality were 6 feet long and about 1 foot tall, covered in feathers with what would look like wings to us today, as opposed to in the movie, very reptilian, smooth features, 9 feet long versus 6 feet wide. So that boy was absolutely right when he said,
more like a 6-foot turkey.
But Grant was also absolutely right when he said that 6-foot turkey could slice you open. Now, if Jurassic Park wanted to be a little bit more accurate, what they could have done is called the raptors in the movie the Utah Raptor, because the Utah Raptor was actually 5 feet tall. And in fact, the Utah Raptor was estimated to be 16 to 23 feet long, much bigger than the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park. Maybe more intimidating too. Now, you may attribute the lack of feathers on the Velociraptor or the change in size on the Velociraptor in the movie to a mistake the makers of the movie made. I personally attribute those factors to an interference of the frog DNA, so we'll go with that. Next up, we have the king of dinosaurs. Of course, I'm referring to the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Now, one of the biggest mistakes in the movie is the speed of the T-Rex, the speed in which the T-Rex can run. In the movie, the Tyrannosaurus Rex is chasing after Ellie and Ian in the car, and we see him closer than it appears in the rearview mirror. Well, Miraculously, he was able to keep up with their car. In reality, the T-Rex could probably only run about 12 miles an hour as opposed to 30-35 miles he ran in the movie. So let's just say Ian, he would have been just fine. Another issue with the T-Rex in Jurassic Park is the part in which Alan iconically says, "Ian, freeze!" stating that if you were to hold still, the T-Rex is not able to see you. Well, in reality, the T-Rex is actually known to have had a really good forward-facing vision, probably some of the best of dinosaurs of his era. So Alan probably would not have been fine. The last dinosaur I want to talk about is the iconic Dilophosaurus. If you remember, the Dilophosaurus killed Newman towards the middle of the movie by letting out frills and spewing some poison on him. Newman couldn't see, so he rubbed the poison all over his face and stumbled back to the car until, of course, he became dinner for the Dilophosauruses. Well, if you ask any paleontologist what is their least favorite scene in Jurassic Park, they're gonna say this scene where Dennis Nedry gets eaten and killed by the Dilophosaurus because they hate fun. No, but in reality, the Dilophosaurus is known to not have had poisonous capabilities. In fact, no dinosaur at all is known to have poisonous capabilities, especially not ones that can shoot out muck and goop like that. There's also no evidence that Dilophosaurus had frills that shot up when he went to attack. Now, of course, this scene with the Dilophosaurus and its frilled neck is inspired from the frilled neck lizard that shoots out its frill to scare off predators, as well as the aptly named spitting cobra, which spits venom out of its two front fangs up to 2 to 3 feet away from it, primarily thought to have evolved to keep humans away, which makes sense. But as far as any paleontologist knows, there was never any dinosaur that spat venom or had venom, and certainly not the Dilophosaurus. So Dennis Nedry, you got off easy this time, I guess.
Please! God damn it! Dodson! We've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares.
Another thing is that the T-Rex and the Velociraptor lived during the Cretaceous era, while the Dilophosaurus lived during the Jurassic era. And so why did John Hammond name this park Jurassic Park if his biggest attractions were from the Cretaceous era? I'd like to think that Hammond just thought Jurassic Park sounded cooler and wasn't necessarily concerned about whether or not his audience of paying customers knew if these dinosaurs would have actually lived together. Now let's get into some of the actual issues facing the idea of creating a Jurassic Park. You know, there might be moral ideas brought up by the likes of Grant, Settler, and Malcolm, but let's talk about the issue of creating the park in the first place. So maybe I'm in good company when I'm arguing against Jurassic Park, except for, of course, their Jurassic Park was built, and in reality, it's probably impossible for it to ever exist. One issue I think of when I think of the creation of Jurassic Park is, of course, the dino DNA, and what it would mean to be able to find dino DNA one could use to recreate dinosaurs. Now, this is the most glaring issue to me of recreating Jurassic Park in reality. Of course, this issue being that DNA does not have that shelf life. The shelf life, also known as the half-life of a material, is how long the element can be viable for. So for example, the half-life of uranium is 4.5 billion years. So Oppenheimer could create the atomic bomb in 4.5 billion years, but the half-life of DNA is on average 521 years. With a max half-life being seen at 0.4 to 1.5 million years depending on the condition in which it was preserved. We all know that the dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago, despite what Adam Driver might tell you. We could never have a Jurassic Park today because there'd be no viable DNA from any dinosaurs that we could find anywhere, regardless of if they were in amber or not. But we could potentially have an Ice Age park if DNA researchers were lucky enough to find DNA from woolly mammoths and giant ground sloths that were still viable enough, because they only went extinct about 4,000 years ago. So maybe no Jurassic Park, but maybe you can go meet Sid the Sloth and Manny the Mammoth. Okay, let's say we break the physics of the elemental table and we can use DNA from more than 0.4 million years ago. Another issue is finding that DNA. John Hammond talks about using frog DNA to fill in the gaps of dino DNA. But that means that whatever creature comes from that DNA coding, the mixture of the dinosaur DNA and the frog DNA, is not gonna look like or act like the same dinosaurs that we imagine, the T-Rex and the Velociraptor and all their buddies. It will be a new creature. Maybe it will look like the Velociraptors of the movie, maybe not. Chances are it would not. But let's say that we have dinosaur DNA and we're gonna fill in the cracks with frog DNA, and somehow that's gonna look like the same dinosaur. It's gonna be near impossible to find the very specific things we need, which is the amber that holds the mosquitoes, that holds the dinosaur DNA. We'd have to look everywhere for the exact condition for that to be created in, because mosquitoes do not hold blood that long. In fact, a lot of times they immediately release it, so this mosquito would have had to be caught immediately. Not to mention, we want to find mosquitoes containing different DNA from different dinosaurs from different eons, millions of years apart. So even if that were all true, lastly, Jurassic Park has got to remain science fiction because humans have never been able to clone or replicate bird or reptiles of any type. In fact, humans have only had sparse success in cloning with mammals, such as goats and sheep and things like that. So for this park to exist, humans need to become quickly sufficient in cloning animals like birds and reptiles, and cloning their ancestors with DNA of modern day reptiles mixed in. Where Jurassic Park falls short on getting the science exactly spot on, I think it nails the moral dilemma in creating dinosaurs again, and the issues that come with it. There's a great scene in which the scientists Malcolm, Grant, and Settler, as well as the lawyer,
The blood-sucking lawyer.
and John Hammond, discuss over dinner the park. And something Ellie Settler says is that the environment from 66 million years ago, 66 million plus years ago, is completely different than the environment today. That means the air, that means the grass, that means the plants. In fact, one of the species of plants that Hammond picked up is completely poisonous, but he just picked it based on the aesthetic.
Well, the question is, how can you know anything about an extinct ecosystem? And therefore, how could you ever assume that you can control it? You have plants in this building that are poisonous. You pick them because they look good. But these are aggressive living things that have no idea what century they're in, and they'll defend themselves violently if necessary.
It's very hard for scientists to reconstruct exactly what a dinosaur might have looked like, let alone exactly reconstruct the environment in which a dinosaur lived. So to bring back a creature that developed its own characteristics based on its own times to a different time that has completely different characteristics to not match the characteristics the creature developed is something that's meant for inevitable disaster. Not to mention, of course, as Dr. Malcolm eloquently puts,
dinosaurs had their shot and nature selected them for extinction.
For whatever reason, nature, a higher being, whatever you want to call it, took out the dinosaurs. And to put them back with the humans is to completely disrupt the natural food chain, which has been developed over the course of 66 million years without them. Well, I'll let Alan Grant explain.
Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea of what to expect?
I do guess that the latest Jurassic Park movie showed dinosaurs in the wild, but I never saw it, so I can't speak to it. But hopefully it's understood that dinosaurs plus humans probably was never meant to be. Not only because of the impossibility of it, but probably because it isn't fun for humans not to be the top predator anymore. But hey, who's to say some of that Oppenheimer nuclear radiation doesn't get on one of them? They become giant and they become our new best friends. That's a future I'd like to see.